I hereby call to order this meeting of the King George County Board of Supervisors. Are there any amendments to the agenda, Mr. Miller?
No, ma'am.
Very good. I'll open the floor for public comment. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person in order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. If comments relate to a specific public hearing item, we ask that you offer those comments at the time of the public hearing. Please state your name and address. Is there anyone here physically present in the audience who wishes to provide public comment?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Bob Beard, 15316 Kings Highway, King George. Keep my comments brief this evening. I just want to thank the Board of Supervisors for their hard work and wish them well over the next few weeks as you're entering into some very heavy discussions regarding zoning and comprehensive planning and so forth. That's an effort that we badly need to have addressed to coordinate our zoning with our comprehensive plan and prepare this county to move forward into the future, both as far as land use, zoning, and transportation. So I thank you in advance for your hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Baird. Anyone else here in the audience who wishes to provide public comment, please come forward. All right, seeing no one else, Mr. Dines, do we have anyone online who wishes to provide public comment? Very good. Members, did anyone receive correspondence from constituents? Very good. I'll close public comment and we'll move on to reports of members of the board. Mr. Granger.
Yes, ma'am. Just like to say thank you to Mr. Baird for your comments. Other than that, I have nothing else to report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Granger. Mr. Stonehill.
Mine will be quick as well. Thursday, August 19th, myself, Mrs. Kupka, Mr. Minor attended the Vaco County official summit that was held this year in Short Pump. We heard the key speaker was Governor Northam. He spoke about COVID relief, business rebounding, and a bunch of other things. We heard from a Mr. Jason Mayeris, who is running for Attorney General, and he was a very impressive speaker that we had there that day. We also heard from Winsome Sears and Alayla, sorry if I'm going to pronounce your name wrong, who are both running for lieutenant governors here in November. After that, I attended 2 general steering committees that I'm on, which is the Government Steering Committee and Environmental Ag Committee, when they spoke quite a bit about voting. And for the ag, they spoke quite a bit about Department of Agriculture has a lot of funds and matching funds for farming. So for any farmers that are looking for relief and things, the state's got a lot in there right now for that, for farmers. And then we also spoke in the General Steering Committee. VACO is in big support of local and regional advisory bodies to continue to meet electronically and put that into law. So it seems like besides ourselves, many of the other counties are having a hard time getting folks on boards and meetings in person. So they're trying to get that written into law, so that's going to be a full-time thing. And also have been doing some work on trying to get Dahlgren into the Coastal Resilience Master Plan, which would help the Dahlgren area for flooding. That's a very complex thing, and I'm going to continue to try to work on that, try to help the folks in Dahlgren with their flooding issues. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Stonehill. Ms. Bender.
Yes, I would like to start with thanking Mr. Baird for his comments. I attended the GWRC and FAMPO meetings with Ms. Kupka. For this month, tomorrow we have an executive committee meeting helping to look at interview candidates for the new executive director. I also participated in the Dahlgren Heritage Museum retreat They are moving as an organization into modernizing their museum, and it was interesting to see the research they did and the surveys they put out and all the information, and hopefully the whole county can work together and have a new approach to museums. I also am going to attend next week, very excited, the Virginia Pollution Control Board panel. It should be very interesting, and I'm very honored to represent all the counties of Virginia, was asked to do that, so I'll bring back a lot of information. It is the first of 4 to 5 meetings that'll go into November. Then last but not least, I would like to nominate Tricia Molnar to the Rappahannock Area on Aging Board, also known as Healthy Generations.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Bender. Mr. Bush?
No report, Madam Chair.
Very good then. So, Mr. Baird, thank you very much for your comment. We appreciate you coming out. I want to point out a new addition to our boardroom since our last meeting. If you look over Mr. Dine's left shoulder by Mr. Britton, thank you, Mr. Britton. We have one of the shovels from the Regional Broadband Grant Project groundbreaking that Ms. Bender and I attended, as well as a photograph of the groundbreaking with the governor and all of the officials from the localities. And I want to thank Mr. Miller for arranging that, and specifically Chief Moody for making that happen. I think they did a nice job, and it's very fitting to have it here on display for all the public to see. Moving on, as Mr. Stonehill stated, August 19th, County Officials Summit. I'm pleased to report I participated in the Economic Development Steering Committee meeting, and the committee adopted my suggested edits to the broadband priority and the electric grid capacity planning position with regard to solar and battery storage. On Friday, August 20th, 2021, I participated in a call with Mr. Jimmy Carr of All Points Broadband, Mr. Miner, and Mr. Miller regarding an additional VATI grant application for areas not previously covered in our current regional broadband project, and Mr. Miner is going to provide us with a briefing tonight regarding that. On Thursday, August 26th, Representative Whitman hosted a COVID update call with Dr. Rich Williams, the director of the Three Rivers Health District. I asked a question regarding the existence of supply chain issues in rapid test swabs, as currently the way for our school-age children to test out of quarantine is by a negative test on day 5. And I had heard that many of our local urgent care providers were no longer providing tests to anyone who is asymptomatic. So if you showed up and you needed a test to be able to go back to work or school, but you didn't have symptoms, they weren't testing because of the swab shortage. So Dr. Williams indicated that he is in fact aware of supply chain issues at one of the major manufacturers. He encouraged me to contact our local health district to see if they would reinstitute a weekly testing clinic in our community. I contacted Rappahannock Area Health District regarding the same and was told that they do plan to stand up a weekly testing clinic here in our community again, possibly beginning later this week. On Saturday, August 28th, I attended the funeral of Patsy Mcdaniel. I can count on one hand the number of people who were with me on the very first days of my campaign, as well as the last. Patsy collected signatures on my petitions to become a candidate. Patsy wanted to help on election day, but couldn't stand to be out in the cold. So she was part of my coffee crew, who drove around to all the polling locations to supply my volunteers with hot coffee. I met Patsy first at King George Love Thy Neighbor. Then she joined me as a director at King George Education Foundation. Patsy was integral to the success of the Foxmart Center, a one-stop shop for school supplies and hygiene items for teachers, students, and families in need. Patsy was in charge of the hygiene section, and we bought 2 locking cabinets to store those items: toothpaste, toothbrushes, shampoo, and the like. Everyone knew those were Patsy's cabinets, and you dare not put something in the wrong place. She took great joy in in preparing hygiene bags. A Ziploc bag containing a toothbrush, travel-sized toothpaste, comb, mouthwash, etc., that school counselors or nurses could give to students who didn't have these items at home. Patsy loved to set up and man the King George Education Foundation table at school and community events. Patsy was part of our county's extended family too. One of her daughters is our Chief Deputy Commissioner of the Revenue. One of her granddaughters works in our treasurer's office. One of her granddaughters-in-law also works in the commissioner's office. And a niece of hers works at our Department of Social Services. Thank you to county administration for the floral arrangement you sent her family on behalf of the county. Patsy Mcdaniel, you are already missed. And two other items regarding social services. On August 30th, I attended the Social Services Board of Directors meeting. DSS will once again coordinate a Thanksgiving dinner food drive and a holiday gift drive this year. And you can call DSS, Department of Social Services, and ask for Tracy Curtis for more information if you care to donate. And lastly, on Wednesday, September 1st, I attended with Ms. Bender the grand reopen ribbon cutting and open house for Exit Realty Expertise. Congratulations to Gary and Colleen Butler and your team. We're glad you are in downtown King George. That's all I have. All right, we'll move on to consent agenda.
Move to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. County officials reports. I do not see any constitutional officers here this evening. So we'll move on to report of the county attorney, Mr. Golsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have before you in your package a proposed for your consideration declaration of local emergency. It's a continuation of the declaration to allow such these remote meetings and let the function of government continue through difficult times, not just for this board, but for other boards and commissions, and also allow remote participation by the citizens and keep government functioning. So this would just be an extension for 6 months based on the, I guess, surge again with COVID. And more so, it definitely affects King George, but more so nationally, and we just need to be able to continue functioning.
Thank you, Mr. Golsky. Do I have questions from members? Mr. Granger?
Yes, ma'am. So I know that this would also afford us the opportunity to make purchases for need items that goes around the normal procurement process. Has anyone reached out to Fire and EMS Department and Sheriff's Department? Do we have a need for that right now?
It is not to my knowledge, but it's definitely, especially with the, I guess, potentially the testing situation and the PPE and that sort of stuff, we'll definitely can work with Mr. Miller and reach out to those departments.
Oh, so I asked because I'd like to know beforehand, before moving forward with, personally with approving the declaration. Because that, for me, that would be the biggest concern in regards to making sure any materials are needed that we need to address it. If we have everything we need, and we can go through the normal channels and the normal process for procuring everything, I'm not in favor personally of moving forward with this declaration.
Mr. Stonehill?
I don't really have any questions. I mean, mine was just, when we were down in Richmond and we were talking to the folks at VACO about more of just the meetings and to be able to do that remotely. It would probably, with this new variant and then the MU variant or whatever that's coming out, if we need so, I don't see why we should not. Mr. Golsky, it's just a tool like we had before, correct? That allowed us to do, certain things under these circumstances.
That is correct, Mr. Stoner. And it certainly is, an anticipatory action for Mr. Granger's point with the Delta variant and the other variants that are coming. I guess I did confirm that Chief Moody is aware, and at this point there is no current need, but he is in agreement that that may change on a daily basis, and it is changing on a daily basis. And this would afford that flexibility.
I'm sorry, you're saying Chief Moody said there is well, not currently a need, but there could be a emergent need, is what you're saying.
There is not currently.
There's potentially an emergent need at some point in the near future, possibly. And when I say emergent, I mean things are shifting, and it could mean that there would be a need.
That is correct.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Stonehill, I know it can jump in there.
So before we continue, can I ask Mr. Miller, because you are our Director of Emergency Management, and I know you have been involved in these discussions with Chief Moody. So can you please share with us your thoughts?
Well, as I've reported in previous meetings, we have a weekly COVID update, which is myself, Mr. Golsky, Mr. Britton, Chief Moody, and several of his folks, and then Amanda from HR. And we go through, we want to know, what our current situation is in terms of personnel affected by it. Are our people understanding the options that they have? And we also really get into the whole issue of the testing. And if we've got employees that are going to get tested, I know that, some people are being turned away because they're going and they're not showing any symptoms. And so therefore, some of the places are saying we don't have the supply of testing, which is understood. So we're monitoring these things. And I do think that this local emergency, and I would be very careful in terms of ever using an emergency purchase. And I know that we have, with Ms. Hahn as our finance director, I mean, we cover all those bases, and I would, not be afraid to make a commitment to you that we would not use this if this board passed this tonight. I would not be afraid of saying we won't use the local emergency purchases because we don't need it at this moment. I think the tenor of this declaration extension was because of the fact that the difficulty of having boards and commissions meet, because you have people that are choosing to say they don't want to be a part of it. I know that the perfect example is the BZA. There was a possibility that group could not meet because you have one person who does not want to come and would choose to participate via the remote standpoint. And then if there was somebody else wasn't able to be there, then you have no quorum. And so I think that was the general tenor of this. It wasn't necessarily that we're going to go out and, we've got to go and get a bunch of purchases. And that's, I think, and I think that Chief Moody, if he was here, would confirm that as well. And as well as Sheriff Giles, is that this is not something that they were clamoring for that reason. We know that if there is ever an emergency like a hurricane or tropical storm or something that comes through here, obviously we have methods that we can, come to you all and hold a special meeting and get that emergency purchases back in place. But that's not the focus here. And that's, we wanted to be very clear on that.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Ms. Bender?
Yes, thank you. With what you just said about emergency meetings, not being able to do virtual, I would think that at a state level would have to be fixed, because that's a good idea to keep it as a permanent option now as it has changed, but we shouldn't be declaring local emergencies over this. The other question you mentioned, as a county administrator, am I correct that if there was a need for a massive PPE purchase, you could declare a state of emergency yourself and not need this? As you said, it's not needed at this moment, but in the future, if something arose, you could do that, and then it would come from before the board at the next meeting, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And I would just clarify, under the procurement statutes, I mean, that can occur anytime there can be emergency procurements, even without a declaration. So So it really is, the focus of this is to allow the participation of and the functioning and the continuity of government with the remote means, again, providing services to the constituents.
Is that all the questions you had, Ms. Bender? Mr. Bush?
Questions, not discussion, correct? Thank you. I've heard the word extension used twice already. What are we extending? Because we terminated the last state of emergency declaration, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, I guess, it is a reissuance of that based on the changing and varying circumstances so that it is prepared. So it is basically a reinstatement of the previous declaration.
Okay. So looking at PPE, last time we were in a declaration of emergency, we kept selling this and I think moving it beyond when we should have for the purchase or procurement of supplies, mostly PPE. Do we have an inventory of what was actually purchased and then what has been utilized from not only the county, but from the schools? Because it seems that we purchased a lot of PPE and I just don't see that having been utilized. I mean, I know we use some, fire rescue has used some in responses, but I don't really see where that inventory would have gone that would bring us to the point of having to declare an emergency for procurement's sake. So is there a way, if we don't have that data, can we get it to see what our current stockpiles are and what has been utilized?
I'm sure, I mean, I do not have that information, and I'm sure that can be gathered through finance and emergency services. And again, going back, there are processes to acquire those with or without even a declaration. So that, my understanding in the development of this was not the primary aspect of it, was not for emergency purchases and stuff. It is for the continuity and allowing government to proceed with the remote sessions.
So that'll conclude my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. All right, I don't have any questions. Do I have a motion? Seeing no motion, we will move on to the next item. Thank you very much, Mr. Golsky. I
Thank you, Madam Chair.
appreciate your time on that. Mr. Britton, I appreciate your time on that. Thank you very much. All right, presentations and reports. Item A, Virginia State 9 to 11 baseball tournament briefing by Mr. Jim Roberts, King George Little League and Virginia District 15 Little League. Mr. Roberts, and I see Mr. Michael Gallimore is here with you as well this evening. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my name is Jim Roberts. Address is 12214 Ward Road, King George, Virginia. Joined by Mr. Michael Gallimore.
Good evening, I'm Michael Gallimore. I live at 7070 Indiantown Road, King George.
But, we aren't coming here as King George residents, at least not, I'm not. We were asked to present the status of the Virginia District 15 Little League State Tournament that was hosted by King George Little League in Virginia District 15 this past summer. So with further ado, let's see if we can find the directions here. Point up. Okay, next. Okay, there's agenda. So don't get too scared. Okay, I speak fast, and I'm not going to cover everything. All right. A little bit of background. Some of you recall I was the league president for District 15, for King George Little League for a number of years, and I was succeeded by Mr. Gallimore, and Mr. Brian Miniuk is currently the president of King George Little League, and Brian is holding a practice right now and getting ready for his own board meeting. So a little bit of background. District 15 covers basically the areas of the northern neck and the Middle Peninsula, from Fredericksburg all the way down to Gloucester. Many of you are familiar with the Little League World Series. It's televised by ESPN every year. You may not be familiar with the fact that the international tournament, as Little League calls it, begins at the district level. So those tournaments raise to Little League World Series, and we cover various age groups and divisions across Little League baseball and softball. Ages from 10 and up to 16 participate in Little League World Series, and the 8 to 10 and 9 to 11 divisions participate in Little League tournaments up through the state level. And there is a tournament of state champions that is conducted in North Carolina for those state champions. Please note, because of COVID, there was no international tournament last year, and sadly, but this year we did hold Little League baseball and softball. The 10 to 12-year-old divisions did have a World Series this year, which was televised by ESPN. From a schedule perspective, just a little bit of background. So there's 16 districts in Virginia, and each section has 4 districts, so a total of 16. And the tournaments are based on when the World Series is held. So scheduling is left up to Little League and the Southeast, in our case, Southeast region, for the scheduling of the tournaments. The goal, of course, is to complete the lower level tournaments before the next level begins to allow the teams to prepare for their next destination. So as the district administrator for District 15, I attempt to spread the wealth across the leagues in District 15 for hosting district tournaments as well as state tournaments when the time presents itself. Similarly, the state association has a rotational schedule for the districts to host various tournaments throughout the year. One thing that's important as a district is that we receive or request the buy-in from the local leagues and the other leagues in the district. It's not just the local league hosting it, it's the entire district. So we get help from other neighboring leagues when it comes to volunteers and other support. So there's some key elements. The state has specific requirements for leagues and districts to host state tournaments, such as facilities, lights for night games, approved safety plan, and lodging in nearby, near the fields, close proximity to the fields. Along with that, they want to make sure we have adequate seating for fans, changing area for the umpires, restroom facilities, adequate parking, safety of the players and security is very, very important. And again, one of the key elements, of course, is having lodging and dining facilities and other activities in reasonable distance from the ball fields. So King George Little League was selected in 2019 to host a 2020 tournament. Sadly, we did not have an international tournament last year, so King George Little League recommitted last year to host a 2021 tournament. They elected to use Barnesfield Park for the facility. And some folks were wondering because last time King George Little League hosted a state tournament, we used Sealston Sports Complex. Sealston has very nice fields that has lights that meet Little League standards, but really doesn't have the infrastructure nearby when it comes to lodging, dining, and other activities. Additionally, King George Little League had partnered with the county and Parks and Rec to invest in Barnesfield Park in the areas of fencing and new dugouts, infield mix, and such. They really want to showcase the investment and the partnership that they had established with the county and Parks and Rec and utilize that field. It turned out to be a very, very good venue to host a state tournament. When it comes to hosting a state tournament, the district and the local league have certain responsibilities that are delineated. And we all work together to make sure it all comes together. As you can see, the league is primarily responsible for the facilities and the local infrastructure. This is a quick slide of the schedule we had. You can see we had 12 teams come from around the state. We had pool play for 3 days, so each team got 3 games before we went into single elimination. And our state champion ended up being Fairfax National Little League from District 10. So these are participants, and along with the districts that they represented. You see 12 teams from all around the Commonwealth, total 191 ball players and coaches. And then we had over 50 volunteers, including Ms. Kupka. Working concession stand, press box. We had 18 volunteer umpires from across the district providing excellent coverage for all the games. We had at least 4 umpires on every game, and we had 6 on the championship game, all volunteers. We estimated, according to the feedback from the teams, we estimated about 300 family members, in addition to the teams, came to witness or participate in the tournaments in one form or another. So one of the district's responsibilities is to find lodging in the local area for those teams. The challenge, of course, in many of our rural areas is not a lot of lodging available in close proximity. So I attempted to block the rooms. We typically use 8 rooms per team as an average, to block those with the hotels that are down in the King George, Dahlgren area. Had some success. In some cases, the blocks ran out before the teams knew they were coming. But fundamentally, the teams were able to use every available room for the duration of the tournament with the rooms that were available. Some ended up staying across the river, and at least one team stayed in Fredericksburg. But and a couple teams commuted. Even those teams that commuted ended up staying a few nights here, as well as their fans. Of note, of course, lodging is limited in King George between the base business as well as the construction going on the bridge. So that contributed to the lack of vacancy. But everyone had adequate lodging that was available. So some feedback from the participants. I'm not going to read them to you, but the bottom line was there was significant positive feedback on not only the park and the volunteers and the hospitality shown by the local Little League, District 15, and the county, but also Brian Minick reported, folks came up to him as Little League president, as the host, and acknowledged their appreciation for the hospitality the Little League and the county provided. So a couple other lessons learned. So as you may recall, Tropical Storm Elsa came its way, and they actually postponed the start of our tournament. We were forced to push the opening ceremony and welcoming picnic out of the schedule because Hurricane Elsa, we felt it was too risky for folks to travel on that Thursday to be present. So we skipped the opening ceremony, welcoming picnic, and started games on Saturday, so people could travel on Friday. Had a brief mandatory meeting with the league officials and coaches and managers on Friday night. Despite the heavy rain that we had, Kevin Smith and Parks and Rec and the King George County maintenance crews were able to put the field in playable condition in short order. We got like 7.5 inches of rain, in some cases 11 inches of rain further down the river, over the span of that 36-hour period. And they worked hard to make sure the fields were playable and safe for the ball players on that Saturday morning. And despite the heat, Kevin and his team were out there every day helping the volunteers and making sure the fields were ready to play. A couple things to note from the field and facility standpoint to look at. The bleachers need to meet some safety requirements, so need to have railings in the back and sides. That's one of those safety things. The fields need to be enclosed, so in conjunction with Parks and Rec and the county and Little League, they're able to put up temporary fences around the field to make it safe. But certainly permanent fences would increase your security, because there were some security incidents prior to the tournament where we had some some folks doing donuts in the outfield and things like this, which would have been catastrophic had it occurred during the tournament, or especially on the infield. We would have lost the field to play on. The temporary press boxes, which are, I don't know, they're for the trailer schools, and they work great as portable press boxes, as this couple could witness. And we had portable, and we had canvas tents for the covers. But one challenge we did have was security. Because the gate was no longer there, we were concerned about security for all the materials that we had staged at the park, as well as someone who had loaned us their fifth wheeler with air conditioning and generator to use as a changing station for our umpires. And of course, to tow that back and forth daily would have been quite a chore. So we were able to get permission from the county and the Parks and Rec to buy some chain link and some padlocks and strung it between some trees and locked up every night with a sign that said, stay out. And it worked, although it's very temporary. And if you want a good deal on some chain link, let me know. And then last few lessons learned. The field lighting at Barnesfield Park does not meet Little League standards. So to host Little League tournaments or other tournaments, really, the lighting needs to be improved. The lights at Sealston do meet Little League standards. But again, to take advantage of that venue, lights would be a really good investment. There was some challenge with electrical power, so we're running generators to provide power to the concession stand as a backup, as well as for the announcer booths and, of course, the fifth wheeler we used. But certainly the improvements in the field and the backstops and fencing are something very well noted and very well appreciated. The dugouts are great. They're good size. They're safe. Everything works well. Again, some covers would be nice to have to give the ball players some shade. And parking was okay, but if we originally intended to try to put on 3 games at a time, and that would have stressed the parking if we had tried to use all 3, well, more than 2 fields at a time. So in summary, just wanted to remind folks the level of Little League tournaments. It starts at the district level, where your local Little League competes for the district championship, and the district champion moves on to state. State goes to the region, and so forth, leading on to Little League World Series. Obviously, the investment in volunteer time in conjunction with the county and Parks and Rec and local Little League, very appreciated and well noted. We had over 500 people come to King George to participate in this tournament, and they stayed and played in King George. And of course, the feedback we had, because of the field and the welcoming and Mr. Miniuk and the King George Little League Board wanting to hold the tournament at Barnesfield Park, it was a great venue because it had the hometown feel, and everyone noted that. So, pending your questions, that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Granger, any questions? Mr. Stonehill?
Thanks for the presentation. I'm glad, that all worked out and everybody had a great time. So,
Ms. Bender? Mr. Bush? So thank you very much, gentlemen, for the presentation. Thanks to the Department of Parks and Recreation and General Properties for working with you all to make sure that your fields were playable. We were honored to host you all here. And I think you've definitely given us a lot to think about heading into our capital improvement plan requests, and also development of the Barnesfield Park Master Plan going forward. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming out. Have a good evening. All right, moving on to presentation by Mr. David Beal, Virginia Department of Transportation. Welcome, Mr. Beal.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I'm David Beal, resident engineer for the Northern Neck residency. Appreciate the county staff getting my report. I was a little tardy in submitting it, so I don't think it was in your packet, but appreciate it getting up on the screen here. We've been working on mowing grass. We're still working on 301. That's ongoing. We trimmed brush on Salem Church, Rixey Road, and Cleve Drive. We've done some asphalt patching on various routes. We graded Bald Eagle Drive at the request of a citizen work order. We performed ditching on Eden Drive and Potomac Drive. And we finished up a shoulder repair on Jersey Road. I'm sure you all remember Jersey Road was closed for about 10 weeks. We got it open the first week of August. And I would just like to thank everybody for their patience. Certainly the unplanned things are an inconvenience for everybody. We didn't get a lot of complaints over that. The detour was short, but it really does look good. So if you don't drive Jersey Road often, I would suggest you ride through there and look at that end wall on the south side. It's all new, and real proud of that, and hopefully it lasts a long time. We also did some slope erosion repair on Stony Point, Eden Drive, and on Riverview down at Fairview Beach. We have some more work to do there. That pipe is clogged. We have a special truck coming in hopefully next week. We had to rent that, and we'll finish getting that pipe clean and stabilizing that bank. We'll continue on mowing, and we do have after we finish this primary cut, we'll have one more complete cycle, either late September, early October, and we'll do all the litter then as well. We're working on some pipe installations, one on Barnesfield Drive and one on Fleming Drive in Bayberry. I believe we started that today. We have ditching planned on Gordon Drive, Alden Road, Salem Church and Windsor Drive, some additional asphalt patching, and we are working on the slope on 301. That was really a catastrophic failure where we were able to keep the road open, which was kind of touch and go there for a little while, but the slope is stabilized with soil nails and a shotcrete wall. That's a concrete wall. Soil nails are they're 30-foot nails and 40-foot nails. So if you imagine something the size of a baseball bat that's 40 feet long, those are drilled into the slope of the road, underneath the road, and then say the last 2 feet of them are hanging out of the slope, and then they put wire mesh over top of those nails and shoot concrete over top of the mesh. So there's basically a concrete wall that's suspended by the nails. They're supported by the slope that keeps that slope from falling, that enabled us to keep the road open. So now we have a second contractor coming in. He's there now working now. We should start filling and start hauling material tomorrow. He's working on drainage there now, and we're going to bury that slope with a new embankment. So it'll last a long time when we're done. We're about 2 weeks in to a 10-week phase on the second phase of that work. Haven't gotten a lot of complaints about traffic there. That lane's been closed for a while. I think it's far enough between the signals that people have time to merge over, and it's not really causing a problem. But if you do hear of concerns there, please feel free to let me know. We have some debris removal plan on Little Ferry Road, and then we're continuing to work on work orders countywide. Pavement schedule, they save the best for last. The pavement schedule has to be complete by October 15th, and they're finishing up in Westmoreland, and then they'll be coming to King George. And I think that is going to align nicely with the secondary 6-year plan projects. We started on Rixey Road a couple weeks ago, and I think Rokeby Road a couple weeks ago, and I think that'll be ready when the contractor is here doing the rest of these surface treatment routes. The signage project from our traffic section and the district is complete, so I'll remove that from your next report next month. Secondary 6-year plan, if you have page 2. Rokeby is under construction. We'll move on to Ivy Hill Loop as soon as we finish Rokeby. And you can see I added Prim Road from our secondary 6-year plan update this year. Smart scale projects, the turn lane project on 206 and 218 goes to add next summer. And the other two are in out years that funding begins for project development in fiscal year '24. The structure and bridge projects, I did update a couple of those. The repair on 301 at Pine Hill Creek, that won't impact traffic, but I still like to keep you updated. We did push that back to 2022 due to an increase in scope. So that won't have an impact to traffic. The superstructure replacement at Maddox Creek on 625 is planned for summer of '23. And the railroad bridge on Fletcher's Chapel 603, that project is coupled with another bridge in Caroline, and it actually went to award this summer. We received one bid. We're going to recommend it for award. Initially, we were planning for the bridge in Caroline to be done first, and then once they were complete, they would move to the Fletcher's Chapel Bridge. But due to the difficulty in getting railroad flaggers, we've allowed them to work on, we're going to allow them to work on both bridges at the same time. So you may see work there before 2023. I think you will see work there early 2022. There will be some lane closures there, and I will be sure to let them know about the proximity to the school and the pre-construction conference when that is held. That completes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all might have.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Mr. Granger, any questions?
I have any questions. Thank you for the report. This was great. Really appreciate it.
Mr. Stonehill?
A question, just thanks for everything you guys do and thanks for keeping us updated.
Ms. Bender?
Could you send us that presentation or just the couple pages that you have up there? And one question, I want to thank you. Well, thank you for Big Timber. A lot of the constituents have mentioned that you've done some nice work on Big Timber and they appreciate it. Other thing is the grass, you know, the shopping center that has Bo's Cafe and Pizza Bono and that, and there's that little cut through on more towards Bo's Cafe. The grass is a little high there. I can know now based on the car I drive is a little lower to the ground, and it's kind of hard to see if you're making a left-hand turn. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bush? All right, then. What's that? No, well, actually, it could be because I noticed they have mowed 301 south of Route 3, but I don't think they've mowed north of Route 3 yet because I came home from Richmond the other night and noticed that. So I think it's probably in the works. Thank you for the update. I had reached out to you a couple weeks ago about some citizens on Windsor asking about ditching. So I'm sure they will be happy to hear that that is in the works. Thanks to you and to Dennis and the whole crew that were out on Riverview Drive. I know that's been an ongoing issue, but I appreciate you all and everything you're doing to try to resolve that. Question about, are there any plans for ditching on 301 south of 205? I had a couple people businesses in particular, reach out to me about that.
I'm not aware of any immediate plans. If you want to let me know specific locations.
Okay, sure.
I'll get those.
Sure. All right, very good then. Thank you, as always, sir. Thanks for coming out.
All right, thank
We
you.
appreciate your time. All right, moving right along. Smart Scale Projects Update by Ms. Kimberly Wilson, Department of Economic Development. Welcome, Ms. Wilson.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. There's no presentation. Thank you, Chris. I can advance. Yes. For this round of Smart Scale, applicants must complete an intake form for each intended pre-application for round 5 of Smart Scale. They have requested forms be submitted as soon as possible with a submission date of no later than October 15th, 2021. Staff's recommendations are based on current activity and supports VTrans requirements that projects align with the county's comprehensive plan or long-range planning. So our first project is a stretch of Route 301 from University Drive to Route 614. This project was a recommendation of GRWC's bicycle and pedestrian coordinator. This is considered a VTrans Priority 2 need for roadway safety improvements and capacity preservation. It is in the Dahlgren UDA and is located on a corridor of statewide significance. There is an opportunity for adding a bike ped component which will increase safety and potentially adhere better to smart scale guidelines. Crosswalks and pedestrian signal upgrades at University and 301 will facilitate travel between the hotels and offices on the south side of the commercial area and the University on the north. A sidewalk or shared use path on the north side of 301 can continue eastward with the potential to extend to Barnesville Park trails eventually. There is a previous smart scale application that addressed pedestrian crosswalks crossing Commerce and crossing from Commerce across 301. The next would be two projects, but I combine them for ease of viewing. Based on current county projects, both of these intersections, Bloomsbury and Route 3 and Birchwood Creek and Route 3, could benefit from turn lane extensions. Future economic development projects located at the Birchwood site, the Taylor property, and Bloomsbury were a considering factor in recommended for this project. This would be lane extension and crossover improvements at 301 and Eden Drive. Oakwood Estates is located off Eden Drive and has a total of 181 lots approved to build on. Based on the GIS map, the subdivision is roughly halfway to completion. If you presume each home has 2 drivers, that is a significant increase in traffic since the subdivision's development. This could be considered for both safety and economic development VTrans categories. I skipped one. This was a previous smart scale project, the lane extension and crossover improvements at 301 and Port Conway. And we still feel this would benefit from funding from a safety standpoint. And that's a recap of what we are proposing for the next round of smart scale projects.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Questions?
When did you say the submittals had to be in by?
October 15th.
October 15th. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Stonehill?
No questions, just thanks for the presentation.
Ms. Bender?
For Eden Drive, and is there not enough traffic for a turn signal, only a lane extension, or does that have to have a survey done?
Do you know the area that they're talking about?
Signal would have to meet warrants, and I would doubt there's enough traffic there, but we could do a warrant study as part of any project to see what the most appropriate control measure is.
I'm just concerned because you also have that new by right development across from Oakwood Estates, and that's a small road, and I travel that every day and make that left-hand turn. And then with Ralph Bunch High School being there, just a concern of the traffic if those turn lanes is enough.
Mr. Bush? All right. So do we have, with regard to the Bloomsbury and Birchwood Creek, I'm assuming we're going to put any available properties for economic development, we're going to have attachments, we're going to have those as attachments in the application?
Correct.
So, okay. And then do we have anything like that down at Port Conway and Salem Church Road? Do we have any economic development properties? Because we know that, and let me remind my colleagues, our 2 weighted factors that we score highest on as a rural community are safety and economic development.
Economic development is 40%, which is higher than safety. for our area.
So we need to be strategic in what we pick, knowing that those are the things that get the most weight and therefore are going to allow us to score the most points, thus be most competitive. So I know the lot at 3 and 301, but that's so far away, that's so far north of there. I don't think it would qualify. We don't have, I don't think we have any, that's my hesitation with that one, knowing that I don't want to say no, but if it didn't score competitively last time, and it didn't for that reason, I'm sure, maybe we need to think of something else to plug in there. Then 301 at University Drive to 614. So I know from the application that I did in 2018 had 2 diagonal crosswalks, one at University and one at Market. Would those still be existing whenever that project happens?
Yes.
In, I think Mr. Bale said 2025, I think that was out for 26, yep.
And so I get, ideally it would extend from University. It would be the north side of 301. So it would
Right.
extend from University to Owens Drive.
Okay, so if we did that one, because I know this was very helpful when I did the prior project, can we make sure to ask the base commander for a letter of support?
Certainly.
Because we had one and that I think was very effective. Then my other question then is for my colleagues, do we want to move forward with Port Conway and Salem Church Road, knowing what we know may happen? Or does anyone have an alternative project, or does staff have an alternative project you could suggest?
We still have some time if you wanted to provide feedback for an alternative project.
So anyone, do you have one? No? Ms. Bender?
Yeah, I just throwing out the intersection up here by Dr. Pilates' office. But that's probably, I'm just throwing it out there. Because we've had accidents coming out Route
Indian
3
Town and 3?
Yeah, or Indian Town and 206.
Yeah, we did the traffic circle Indian Town in 206 last year. Mr. Bush, did you have anything?
I do. I don't see the Port Conway Salem Church Road scoring very well. And I'd like to be more strategic in how we approach this, but I want to be careful because this is technically in Mr. Stonehill's district. And, but I happen to live I utilize that road, but is there a way we can put more emphasis on the University Drive throughout 614? And maybe when I drive there, I don't see a lot of people walking along 301, okay? Like going from Sheetz to Walmart, University Drive. I do see a lot of people walking on Owens, where from Sheetz to the apartments. Is there a way we can maybe put a path over there, something similar to what we had presented in our Trailways project or something like that, and tie that in with this? Is that a possibility?
So that would not be a corridor of statewide significance, though. And it has to meet anything we apply for, correct me if I'm wrong, it has to meet a V-Trans need. And one of the number one V-Trans need is it's on a corridor of statewide significance. 301 is, Owens is not.
So I would ask what the specifications are to meet that criteria, because Owens Road is utilized more and more for a B gate alternative. Traffic is backing up through there, and as the base opens back up, I mean, you could tell when the base was shut down to 25%, you could drive down that road. Under normal operations, you are sitting there. School buses are sitting there. It's a parking lot. So I would actually think that might quantify meeting that criteria, just because of its utilization for B gate. Something just to think about if we got time.
So thank you, Mr. Bush. I would be interested in seeing what a project because we're going to have the next proposal deals with the regional Greenway study. And one of the recommendations in there is a link on 218 between Caledon State Park and the trail. And so I would be interested in seeing what that kind of project might look like up on 218, because I know we've had a number of recent fatalities there. So from a safety perspective, I think it might screen in. And so we do 5 for pre-applications, is that right? And then we only can actually file for 4, right?
Correct.
So we have a little bit of time. Would my colleagues entertain those 2 suggestions? Mr. Stonehill, what do you think? Yes?
Which
Spender?
Which 2 were they again? Just to clarify.
To take a look at Mr. Bush's suggestion on Owens, and then my suggestion of 218 doing some kind of bike ped accommodation between the park and the trail. Only knowing that the next presentation we're going to hear is going to suggest that that's a good idea.
That's fine.
Is that all right? Yes? All right, so can you get this back to us, Mr. Miller and Ms. Wilson? Do you think if we give you until the first meeting in October, knowing that we have
That's what I was going to ask for clarification, because this is my first time going through this. Does this come back to you all and you approve the list and then it goes to the state? So it has to have an official.
the locality
Supervisor.
has
Okay.
to approve it, and then she can file the pre-applications, right? And then go ahead, Kim.
Well, it's not a pre-application. It's an intake form. So they're going to take these intake forms, and I'm hoping I'm right on this. It's basically, they're screening the projects before it goes to the pre-application. So does that give us time if one of these 5 projects doesn't screen? Are we providing an opportunity to provide another project? Or is this it?
Before you submit the 5 pre-apps, you want to make sure that they're all going to screen in, they all meet a V-Trans need. So we can certainly answer that before the 15th.
Okay.
So you'll know where to submit. I would like to make one other comment about the Conway 301 intersection.
Okay.
That project was for turn lanes, and the real safety need there is angle crashes. So I believe you didn't get all the points, all the safety points that were on the board because the project didn't necessarily solve the safety issue at the intersection. So I'll pull some more information on that, and it may be that a redesign of that intersection, such as a median U-turn, like you planned at 301 and 205, a project of a different concept may get enough safety points that it would be competitive. We've had some projects within the residency that have been funded without any economic development support solely on safety needs, and everybody's in the same category you all are in. So it's not unprecedented. But let me verify that and get you some information over the coming week, so that you all can move forward with the 5 that you feel the best.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. That sounds like a good plan. All right. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. So first meeting in October,
Yes, ma'am.
and then we'll nail down which 5. But yeah, bring all of these back, and the other 2 we suggested, please.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Beal. Have a good night. All right, GWRC Regional Greenway Study presentation by Mr. Chris Clark, Director of Parks and Recreation. Welcome, Mr. Clark.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. In August 2020, the George Washington Regional Commission was awarded a $20,000 grant by the Virginia Department of Forestry to study the feasibility of a regional greenway system. GWRC delegated this task to the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, specifically the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. As the staff representative from King George County to the committee, I participated in 3 work sessions on this Greenway study. At their September meeting, GWRC will look to formally adopt this plan. The regional Greenway network, including the proposed first and second tier additions, is shown on the screen and is in your packet. Using the King George County Trailways Plan as a foundation, I made 3 recommendations to this regional system. These recommendations were developed to maximize the reach of current King George County trails, both public and private, to additional amenities and jurisdictions. The first recommendation is to connect the Dahlgren Railroad Heritage Trail to Caledon State Park. Currently, there is not a safe connection to the park from the DRHT. There is concern that without a safe connection and an off-road shared use path, we are destined with a situation of when rather than if we will have a pedestrian accident in that area. The second recommendation is to connect the DRHT to Barnesfield Park. From Barnesfield, connection could then be made to US 301, and once the Harry Nice Thomas Mack Middleton Bridge is completed, bicyclists will be able to cross to Maryland. The final recommendation is to connect the DRHT to Stafford County. This connection depends on Stafford bringing their trail system to our border as well. If both jurisdictions were to make the connections, then a person could travel from King George to Spotsylvania or Fredericksburg via the regional network. While the path here is shown to follow the rail bed as a rails with trails option, there's also the option to follow Kings Highway westward to Stafford County. All 3 of these projects would be dependent on funding from a variety of sources, which have not been identified by Parks and Recreation at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Any questions for Mr. Clark? Mr. Granger?
Yes, ma'am. On the third one, you said there was a possible alternate of following Kings Highway. What would that look like?
My totally non-planning ability would be to come out Birchwood Creek Road and then follow along the side of Route 3.
Okay. Mr. Minor, I know it's kind of weird, may I ask you come up here? With that area being right around our industrial park and everything, is there any concerns with a trail cutting through there and any impacts it could have to economic development with that kind of an activity going on?
Thank you, sir. So I'm not a planner as well, but I would say yes. My gut says yes.
Okay.
I believe there was discussions or some sort of proposed trail to be cut along the railroad line there.
Yes, sir.
I don't know how CSX would feel about that or the property owners that have land next to that rail line. So that's where I sort of stand on it right now.
I appreciate that. I'm going to be honest with you. I like the first 2. I don't like the second tier Greenway connection then going into Stafford. I don't not like the idea of trying to connect up with Stafford, but I think there's challenges there and impacts to economic development. I'm not interested in trying to take on, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Granger. Mr. Stonehill?
We're questions. I'd just say, thanks for the presentation, and, hopefully we could get the other 2 counties to bring their trails to us. It would be a great thing to be able to go all the way from downtown Fredericksburg, Stafford, whatever, all the way to, Walmart or across a bridge to Maryland. So, thank you.
Ms. Bender?
I just want to make a comment. I've seen this before with Ms. Cuppy at GWRC, and my feeling and seeing a lot of them and asking questions before this is that there's a lot of land acquisition and other issues with the industrial park, and it's very ambitious and it has a big price tag, and I don't know if we're ready there yet.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we have any numbers or any data on that crossover at 218 from the trail to Caledon? Have there been accidents? Do we know how many? What type of nature? Anything?
I don't have anything on that register. The way we did with the committee was, what are your connections that would make regionally? As I stand in my desk in the Citizen Center, I watch lots of people walk from Presidential Lakes towards Food Lion, towards the high school, towards Sheets. And while that seems as an internal project would probably be higher rated than these, that's not a regional project. So that's where these were presented, as the fact that they extend our amenities out.
I only ask that because, if we're going to talk about safety and when and if, it'd be good to see if we actually do have metrics on that if we're going to use that as a talking point. The other thing is I have great concern over the land acquisition, which was brought up earlier, and the cost. Not knowing where the funding is going to come from to pay for this, who's going to carry what share. I'm simply not interested. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. So just so my colleagues are aware, as Ms. Bender stated, she and I received this presentation at the GWRC meeting a couple weeks ago. I did express my concern at the time. Didn't have a lot of heartburn about the two northern red connections. They make sense to me. But as Mr. Granger stated, regarding the land acquisition and the economic development sites down there, that gives me some pause. The other big thing that gives me a lot of pause is if we did that, who owns that? Because does the county own it? Because we already don't have the resources, frankly, the staffing and the money to take care of the parks that we have. We heard the Little League guys earlier talk about how, we need better lighting and bleachers and, all sorts of stuff. We have this house now up in Dahlgren that we need to figure out, how to take care of that and what the plan is for that. We have the big full master plan for Barnesfield Park that's included in that. We have Sedell Brooks Park that still doesn't have a pavilion or decent bathrooms. It's got porta potties there. I feel like we have so many parks properties already that we already cannot properly keep up with, that this western extension, I am concerned about who, like I said, who owns it? Because I can't see the county putting any money in match or anything like that towards this and then just giving it to the private owner of the trail that's privately owned. So I'm just not, I just have a lot of concerns. And I would like to hear from Mr. Minor. Do you have some information about what it looks like as far as grants that because that was mentioned that they had reached out to you about possibly applying for grants and what match would be and how much money we might be talking about, please, Mr. Minor.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris? Yep, thank you. So I'll just pass out. I did print these out just in case. So I was contacted by Stafford's Economic Development Department with essentially a larger vision to connect Quantico to Dahlgren. And this trail would essentially overlap the Potomac Heritage National Trail. So the idea of connecting to their state park in Widewater to our state park in Caledon and down to Dahlgren is essentially the vision. The funding would come from the US EDA. They have travel tourism and outdoor recreational ARPA funds. Regional applications are strongly encouraged, but you do have the option to put in local applications. And I've been working with my staff in order to identify locations within the county we could go after. However, we still have to come to some sort of agreement within the county if we want to pursue this this grant funding. So what Stafford, GWRC, and Fredericksburg are potentially proposing is to use this to do the hire consultants to do the planning, design, and engineering work up front for these connections. The majority of this is going to be done probably from Stafford, a little bit in Fredericksburg, and then we have our sections here in the county that they are proposing in the Greenway Trail as well. So we have not gotten an accurate estimated cost, but what we're potentially looking at is anywhere between $500,000 to $75,000, with the local match being anywhere between $100,000 to $150,000. And so that would either be split 3 ways, or the bulk would be on the Stafford side, and then we would pay for whatever's required on our on our side for the engineering and design for the connections. You can go to the next slide, please. So the next steps, if we'd like to pursue it, is essentially to have all three localities come to some sort of agreement that we're going to pursue this once we figure out either what that local match is or what the funding would be required for. I do want to just, for the record, there has not been any formal meeting or discussion between each economic development department. It's basically just been an exchange of emails about, is this something that we would like to pursue? So just up here in front of the board trying to flesh that out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. Mr. Granger, any questions for Mr. Minor?
No, thank you. I do appreciate this information about the grant and being prepared. Thank you.
Yep. So there's just one thing to note, sir, and Madam Chair, is that the federal dollars, I think it's close to $500 million in funding, and then there's a state allocation that goes out, which is close to $250 million, I believe. So there is money that's going to be given to the state. So this might just not be just a federal project. It could potentially be a state project as well, just to sort of put that on your radar, that at some point money's going to be pushed to the state, the Virginia Tourism Corporation. And just like we got grant money for the Wonderlove program, there may be another program associated with that, but you can do infrastructure projects. So for, Chris Clark, as well as my department, is sort of looking at where in the county we could potentially use this for. And the Greenways trails was one of the first projects. But some of the things that we've discussed in staff is, Wilmot Landing, Barnesfield Park, looking at other potential areas to apply the funding. So just wanted to mention that to you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. Mr. Stonehill, did you have any questions?
No questions, but I'd like to see what the other groups, the other counties up there in Fredericksburg are thinking about this.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bender?
No questions.
Mr. Bush?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. So it would tie into the Dahlgren Heritage Trail. So would there be any questions of ownership and then liability? So previously the county had partnered with the Dahlgren Heritage Trail. They dropped their liability insurance, so we no longer had that relationship with them. If we were to pursue something like this, and by the way, I would like one of those magic trees that the government's getting all this money to give away for all these grants. But what would the liability be to the county if this was pursued? Like from where they tied in from outside jurisdictions and then came through county property or whatever the county acquired to what's currently owned under private ownership, would there be any liability questions or concerns, or is that getting ahead of ourselves?
I think that's probably getting ahead of ourselves, but a liability question is more suited for the county attorney. Mr. Golsky.
I would say, there are a number of arrangements that could be made. So, it really is premature to do this. There's ways to, obviate the risk and everything, but without knowing the actual plan and structure and even concept really at this point, it'd be premature to go that route.
And I only bring that up because if we are pursuing an agreement with other jurisdictions and it's something that we're going to be asking for taxpayer dollars, regardless of the source, to utilize, I would like to have those kind of things at our disposal to see if it's something we do want to pursue or if it's something that's dead at the onset. So that's why I brought that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. So my question for my colleagues then, at the next GWRC meeting, there will be a resolution to adopt this Greenway's feasibility plan. And so what is the consensus of the board with regards to King George County's position regarding same?
Adopting it as is?
It would be adopted as is. The only suggestion I would make is that we could say King George County Board of Supervisors supports the Greenways plan in theory, but is unable to commit resources towards implementing the plan at this time.
I'll be honest again, I'm going back to I didn't have it up, I'm sorry.
The western extension
Yes, ma'am.
in your district.
With that being in there, I'm not in favor of this at all. If that's part of the plan, then no, I'm in opposition personally.
So, and this is exactly why I brought this tonight, because I did have those concerns and I don't want Ms. Bender and I to go to the meeting next month and say, or have one of us be the one who moves to adopt the resolution and it gets adopted and then they come back and they ask staff, hey, Nick, start working on writing this grant. And Nick is doing that. And then he comes to us for local match and we say, where the heck did this come from? Who said this was okay? Who said King George County wanted this? And it's me and Bender. So I guess that's where I'm coming from.
I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing it to us. As I said, if it's as is, I'm in opposition, and that's my stance. But obviously, it's majority of the board. So,
Madam Chair, may I ask one
Yes,
question?
Mr. Miller.
The next meeting of the GWRC, when is that scheduled?
It would be whatever the last, it's going to be later this month in
So
September.
this is,
Yes, the
they're
last
committed to-
Monday in
They're committed to
September.
having this vote.
It will be on the agenda, yes. So it was for presentation in August, and then they wait a month and they bring it back for action, for adoption. So there presumably would be a resolution of the GWRC board endorsing the Greenway's feasibility
Do
plan.
you know if their staff is making presentations to other communities, other counties?
I do not know that.
Because it would, to me, you could come back and say, we feel that it'd be of merit to have them make a presentation to you to explain, some of this and to hear maybe directly some of the comments that Mr. Granger has and some of the other members of the board have in terms of, the way this is all being put together. And instead of, you getting back to them and saying no, I mean, if no is no, I guess then fine, I understand that. But if there is a possibility that this could be a project that meets everybody's needs, then obviously you don't want to
burn a bridge.
Well, you don't want to necessarily take yourself out of that. But I think with regional projects, the things that the most important thing that you need as supervisors, as the elected officials representing this county is that that other communities are putting a lot of resources into it and that they're satisfied with the direction. I mean, if you aren't satisfied with it, that you have one of two options. One is you could do what you're considering possibly doing tonight, and that is sorry, we're not going to participate. Or you could say, we need to participate under these conditions. We need these answers. And we'll be happy as county administrator and our staff could put together some kind of a list of what the issues are, the concerns are, so you could at least have a continuation of the discussion, if that's what the board wants.
Will of the board, Ms. Granger?
if we have some way to reach out to them and have a discussion with them, that'd be great. If not, as I said, I'm a no.
All right, Mr. Stonehill?
I like the idea. I think it's a great, I think it's a great idea, but we'd need more information. So if they could come and explain more to us without us saying no, because we're always into no. We just need some more information. We have more questions that need to be answered.
Ms. Bender?
I'm not opposed to a presentation.
Mr. Bush?
So I feel that we have two people that attend GWRC meetings on behalf of the board as appointees, and I put my faith in the things that you guys bring back to us, like you putting this on the agenda tonight, Madam Chair. I really appreciate that. I think being this is a regional project and King George in the midst of everybody on GWRC, we can raise those concerns. I think the project's probably going to stand as it is. Me, frankly, I'm not interested in this project at all. That's my 2 cents. So thank you.
Ma'am, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Clark.
So the project is in our Trailways Feasibility Study that this board adopted in March of this year. So that's where it came from. So I think it would be a challenge to go back to GWRC and say a portion of a plan that this board adopted in March unanimously is now not a good portion of a plan to put into a regional plan. would be a challenge. I just don't, I think that would be a challenge. The planning process that I sat through bi-monthly meetings and then 3 work sessions on was simply a planning process. This is a plan. There were no talks of funding. Clearly, this ARPA funding that has come through has accelerated that process in some way. But my understanding of this entire plan is that it's to adopt a plan for the region. Stafford, Spotsy, Fredericksburg, and Caroline all have different aspects of the plan. And some jurisdictions obviously have more proffers and those things that are pushing some of their projects forward. They have smart scale projects. They have different ideas that are developing them. They have $400 million bonds for traffic, for transportation things. We don't have those things. So we're presenting just what our 3 regional options are. That's in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. So, Mr. Miller, could you reach out to GWRC staff and see if they could make someone available to attend and present at our September 21st meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Yeah, I think enough of us are interested in hearing a little bit more. I do want to thank Mr. Clark and Mr. Minor for your time and your efforts this evening. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Minor, you're up again. VATI funding update by Mr. Nick Minor, Director of Economic Development and Tourism.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chris. Next slide, please. Or can I change it up here? Can't. I don't need you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to provide the board a project overview of the Dominion pilot project and then what the next phase or the phase 3, I guess, that the county is looking at to achieve universal broadband, which is a priority for the state right now. So I'm going to go over phase 1 and phase 2. I'm going to go over the construction update and then the additional VATI funding that the county applied for in this 2021 fiscal year, 2022 fiscal year. So currently, so this is just a project timeline as to where we are now. In February of 2020, All Points Broadband and Dominion approached the county to achieve universal broadband for the county. A month later, we assigned an MOU with multiple localities in the Northern Neck. July of 2020, the board committed a $500,000 allocation, just a commitment. And then the January of 2021, it was announced that we were awarded $10.28 million. Then the FCC announced that we received an additional $8.3 million in the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. So getting closer to where we are now, in June of 2021, King George BOS committed $150,000 to make it a total of $650,000 to this pilot project that we are operating under now, that we have our shovel up for now. Then in July, you guys allocated $500,000 to that phase 1 that you committed to last year. And then currently in July, our department submitted a letter to DHCD to go after additional funding to cover some of those unserved areas and underserved locations in the county. And I have a map here that'll show you where we are now. As far as the construction is concerned, Dominion has begun on their phase 1 of their mainline construction, and All Points Broadband will commence their last mile construction in Q4 of 2021, and they anticipate the first installations to be in December. Weather permitting, easements, and all those things permitting as well. So no promises, obviously, but they feel confident that they can start in December of 2021. So this is what phase 1 looks like, and this is primarily all state funding. So obviously, hopefully this works, yes. So obviously we're up here, and the county didn't receive a lot of support from the VATI side, from the state side, just given where some of these locations are. But in total for the entire region, it was about 5,000 underserved locations that this project is looking at for the entire region, not the county. For phase 2, and I'll just go ahead and skip to that now, this pink area is what will be covered by RDOF. So obviously, the majority of our locations or passings is what, as VATI puts it, will be covered under the federal funding. The part that we are trying to secure now is this part right here. basically from Ridge Road down to the Dahlgren area. So because those areas were left out, my department and the county are looking at how do we achieve, how do we truly achieve universal coverage and catch the folks that aren't being served in those areas. Now, the reason why some of those areas have been left out, it could be for one or two reasons. One, they currently have service from Atlantic Broadband, or two, they just didn't fill out the survey when we were passing it around. It's probably a mixture of both, to be honest with you. So this is just to sort of show you guys an enlarged version of it. So this is what we're looking at currently here.
And Nick, can I add something
Yes, Madam Chair.
about that new area?
Yes.
It also is because some other company, not our electric co-ops, originally won the RDOF auction to provide service there. And since that happened, the FCC changed the rules and it's now more competitive, and now other competitors can also try to offer service in places that they did not originally win the auction for. That point is key too.
Yes, absolutely, ma'am. I'm gonna touch on that right now.
Thank you.
Actually. So this is the FCC RDOF awards map that Kyle Conway put together for me. Thank you, Kyle. And the areas that we're looking at here, the majority of these areas are all points broadband and what they're calling the consortium that we're awarded to. The areas that we're concentrating on are right here, which were awarded by SpaceX. So because SpaceX or Starlink has an unproven technology, a lot of people are protesting their bids or their auctions. So that's what we're currently doing now, or what we're gonna go after now. So this is the SpaceX area, just sort of to zoom in on it. We're looking at this area here, and then this area up here near Barnesfield Park. So these are the target areas that we laid out, that Kyle Conway put together for me. Thank you, Kyle. And this is from Ridge Road all the way down to Dahlgren, and this is approximately I believe a little over 900 passings. Now, do all of those homes need internet? Probably not. We're probably going to be, I'm going to take a hard guess and say 300 to maybe 400, maybe even less residents will probably need internet. But this is our goal to try to achieve universal coverage. So this is the area that we're targeting currently in the county. So I'll stop here for questions, and then it's basically my final slide. So I'm only take any questions that the board may have.
Mr. Granger, any questions?
Could you go back one map?
Yes.
I'm sorry, go one back one. This one.
Yes.
Could you explain this to me one more time? What do the different colors mean exactly?
So the colors are, Kyle could probably explain this better than I can, but the colors are based on, I believe, it's like census tract data, sir. So
Okay.
I think that these areas are color coded, one, because they're in different census tracts, and I think it's also because they're just different areas that are just colored differently, to be honest with you. But because it's not the same. So at the bottom here, it'll tell you exactly who won the award.
Okay.
And it's a consortium for the majority of it. And then there's a few areas here that'll say space exploration.
Okay.
And this is the highest concentration of that SpaceX area here.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And could you go back one more slide? Not this the right one. I guess my question will be, so when are they actually gonna look to actually start hooking up homes? Do you know?
To start hooking up homes?
Yeah.
So December
December?
2021 of this year is what they're projected to start hooking up homes.
Awesome.
So they're going to start on the far west end of the county, I believe in the Patsy area, and then just start working their way east.
Far west, but that shows all pink.
Yeah, so the pink area is what's covered by RDOF. The
Okay.
green areas is what's covered by VADI. So this map is not completely accurate. I have another one, but I wasn't sure if I could show it without permission from All Points Broadband.
Okay.
But this is what's currently public.
Okay. Could you go back one more slide?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Blue dots are phase 2.
Yes. And then
Red dots are phase 1. So I'm sorry, you said they're gonna start in the Patsy area.
Yes, sir.
Those mostly look like blue dots.
Yes, sir.
But that's phase 2?
Yes. There
Can you
isn't.
explain that to me?
All Points Broadband could explain it better.
Okay.
Obviously. But I think as far as their funding is concerned, they know how to handle that and how they're handling it.
Okay.
I can't explain it as far as how
Okay.
All Points Broadband is going to do that. I apologize.
That's okay. I appreciate it. Thank you. Nothing else.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Stonehill?
Nick, that new area you're talking about, you said it was going to be like 900 homes or something, but you're thinking only 3 to 4 are going to need internet. Do the other 3 to 4 have something already? Is that how you're coming up with it, or?
Well, I'm taking a guess to be honest, sir. But I know for a fact that there is internet on on Teetotum Road. I also know that there's internet in some areas on Ridge Road because we got we got state money last year to do installations, and All Points Broadband did those installations. So I know that there are connections. I just don't know exactly how many. So that's what All Points Broadband is in charge of providing to the state. How many potential customers are there? And so they'll have that number as far as the passings. I don't have that information as of right now. I will have it when they complete their survey.
All right, so I mean, some of those homes are served already.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's where you're getting your numbers from.
Right. So I know that there's 900 homes because of the information that GIS provided me. I don't know exactly how many have internet and don't have internet, but I am certain that All Points Broadband provides service on some of those roads in that area there.
Okay. I had a constituent here. They were talking to me actually today about it, and they live up off of Windsor. Can I get an updated picture of that?
Yes.
That map? I was looking on their website, but that's all I have. But thank you.
Yes, sir. And so there's a feasibility study that they just submitted to DHCD that I can provide to you guys. It's a little bit more accurate, where you can go in there and almost tell somebody exactly where they're going to have service. So where they're going to provide the service at. So for the public, if you are interested to know whether you fall on the RDOF side, you can actually go to the FCC website and look up your address. For the state project, you would probably need to come through my department, because some of that information I can't provide public. But if you ask me, if you send me your address, potentially I can let you know if you're located there or not. Thank you, sir.
And the key also is you could have some level of service and still qualify as long as you meet the underserved threshold per the VATI grant requirements. So, all right, Ms. Bender?
I have several questions, and I just want to break it down because it can be very confusing, especially to constituents. So I love you put up that map back because that's where a lot of my questions come from. So the pink covers a lot of the county.
Yes.
Now, can any person in that pink area get All Points Broadband, or does where Atlantic Broadband have monopolies stop them from getting that service? And why I ask, because in those areas that originally have been served by census data tracts by Atlantic Broadband, the cost of entry to get internet service might be 30, 40, 50, 60 or more thousands of dollars. So it doesn't make it affordable, even though they say they can cover that area.
So, ma'am, that's a hard question for me to answer.
Or is that something we need to explore a little more? Because
not necessarily. I would say, so if you're in a neighborhood, so I can use Warman Drive, for example. Warman Drive, it's a long neighborhood. It's mostly it's all single family homes, and they have long driveways. All Points Broadband is currently in there. So I'm sorry, Atlantic Broadband is currently serving that area. So All Points Broadband can't use state money or federal money to compete. So they can only go to locations where they're not currently being served. So they can't go into that neighborhood per the franchise agreement and compete against Atlantic Broadband.
you answered it perfectly, even though they still, in my opinion, are underserved, because that cost of entry is quite high for quite a few residents. And my other question, you already answered, how a resident can see if they're in an area. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Bush?
Thank you, sir.
I don't have any questions. Do you want to, you said you had one more slide, Mr. Minor?
Just for those who are out there who are curious about the proposed pricing for this broadband project. So what All Points Broadband is proposing as of right now, and this is When you look at the speeds, because it's fiber optics, it's 50 megabytes up and 50 megabytes down. So there is no latency on the back end on your download and upload. So it's $59 per month for a 50 megabyte connection, $79.99 for a 100 megabyte connection, and then $150 for a gigabyte connection. So pretty affordable to other prices out there. And this is only internet, not cable, just for the record. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. So just so everyone is clear, the local match for this new proposed VATI application is how much and where is it coming from?
So the local match for this current is the $150,000 that we are allocating for phase 2. So they're going to utilize that to cover this additional area.
And we already had, this board had already approved that in the June 1st meeting. So
Yes, ma'am.
we're square on that.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Minor. Item F, Citizen Survey Results Presentation by Ms. Heather Hall, Director of Community Development. Welcome, Ms. Hall.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm Heather Hall, Director of Community Development, and I'm here tonight to present our 2020-2021 annual report to include customer service surveys. Also with me tonight, I have the entire Department of Community Development. We are missing one. Our mission is to provide quality customer service. The Department of Community Development works diligently with various agencies, departments, and developers assisting the community with land development, geographic data, home improvement projects, protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of King George County through administering the Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code and King George County Zoning and Subdivision Ordinance. As you can see, our department is small but mighty with 14 positions divided into planning and zoning, building, GIS, and support staff. And the next slides, I'll go through each department, staff responsibilities, and then go over the customer service survey questions and the responses received. Planning and zoning is responsible for our zoning ordinance, subdivision ordinance, wetlands ordinance, erosion and sediment control ordinance, stormwater management, Chesapeake Bay Act, and FEMA floodplain. This past year, we did 90 plan submittals. Each plan is reviewed at least 2 to 3 times before its final approval. In our zoning staff, we have 4 positions: myself, Lewis, Ben, and a vacant planner position. All of us are either certified by both DEQ, VAZO, Virginia Association of Zoning Officials, or provisionally certified. Building permits and inspection responsibilities include the International Building Code for commercial, Virginia Residential Code, National Electrical Code, Virginia Plumbing Code, Virginia Mechanical Code, just to name a few. In 2021, we issued 965 building permits, 184 single-family dwellings, two new commercial buildings, and 155 occupancy permits. Our building inspection staff is not only highly certified, but average 4,634 inspections per year and an average of 18 inspections daily. Other localities have specialty inspectors. For example, they only inspect electrical or only plumbing. Our inspectors are certified in building, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical. Therefore, they can inspect a home from start to finish. Whereas other localities may have 5 to 6 different inspectors on a job site just for a rough-in inspection. We have one inspector completing that same inspection. We find that this provides clear, precise direction to a contractor rather than 5 different inspectors providing 5 different paths to a past inspection. GIS was busy as well, plotted 94 maps for staff and citizen, made 271 address changes to GIS, made 8 road changes to GIS, including the addition of 3 new roads. 1,300 parcels, 273 plats were changed in the tax maps using plats and coordinate geometry. The online GIS averaged 5,063 unique users each month. 602,654 maps were created with online GIS. 1,102 water, sewer, and stormwater features were added to the GIS. Created 3 GIS web apps, 2 public-facing and 1 for internal staff use. And the annual GIS reports are available on the county website since 2002. We have two members of our GIS staff, Kyle Conway and David Burge. Kyle is our GIS manager and manages the design and support of the GIS and its data while working with county staff, board members, and citizens on various GIS projects. Dave, GIS analyst 2, primarily handles the maintenance of the tax maps, zoning maps, E911 data to include roads, addresses, building footprints, and driveways. MSAG is the company who hosts our current GIS, is going out of business December of this year after creating and hosting the site since 2005. The online GIS currently has over 5,000 unique users a month and is updated quarterly. The GIS staff researched options and decided on an in-house solution. This option will save the county approximately $15,000 in conversion setup costs and approximately $5,500 in annual maintenance fees, leveraging existing technology and using staff experience. The new website has been released for staff first for feedback, and once completed, it will be released to the public, and staff will use handouts, business cards, and news flashes on the county website to spread the word. Last but not least, we have our support staff. Each of our permit technicians have other duties assigned to them besides the intake of permits. Without our support staff, our office would not run so efficiently. All of our permit technicians are certified permit technicians through DHCD, and our newest permit technician will be taking coursework this year and sitting for a certified permit technician certification. We have 14 positions with 1 vacancy currently, and we have 38% of our staff with 10 plus years of service, 23% of our staff with 2 to 10 years of service, and 38% of our staff with 1 year or less of service. What have we been doing this past year above and beyond our regular duties? We've overhauled our customer service survey. Each permit and email that leaves our office has a survey attached to it. It's also on our website, and these surveys are returned directly to HR. The building official has also put together an additional survey that was sent to our most common contractors who do work in King George. We implemented a development committee that brings together VDOT, Service Authority, Economic Development, Virginia Department of Health, Fire and Rescue, and Dahlgren, just to name a few, so that developers have a chance to show their preliminary plans at a roundtable discussion, and we are able to triage their proposal and give them one path instead of several different directions. Staff successfully implemented 2 text amendments that allow by right development to become an administrative process. This is both beneficial for developers as well as staff. Developers no longer see this process as an additional hurdle compared to other localities, and it lightens the staff workload. During COVID-19, our office was open every day except for 4 days we were quarantined. Even during quarantine, emergency inspections were provided in accordance with the law. Our building official, Rick Herron, has designed a list of questions that he sent out to our most common contractors. We wanted honest feedback, wanted to know where we compared to other localities and what we can do to improve, as well as what we're doing well. We wanted to know what other localities these contractors work in. What were the average turnaround time for those localities? And the more rural localities showed shorter turnaround times of 5 days to 2 weeks, and other localities 4 to 5 weeks, and some 2 to 6 months. Our goal in King George is 7 to 10 business days. In King George, for a residential home, assuming that the applicant has provided a complete application. Commercial building permit review is 45 days after the site plan has been approved. We do have fast track permits for people like Ryan Holmes who build the same house over and over again. Those permits are typically turned around in 3 to 5 days. So how does King George permitting process differ from other localities? Here's some of the feedback that we received. I can pick up the phone and get a hold of a plan reviewer and ask questions about what needs to be changed for our plans for approval. Some have noted that more manual J, which is our HVAC system, info is needed at King George County, but no soil info is needed, such as shrink swell soils. Not much difference, efficient and quick, very happy with the current service. Communication, if there's a correction needed, the review person will call the builder. Most other localities prefer digital submissions, which we're working on. Site plans are much simpler than other areas. Stormwater management comps and reports, profiles, designs are all required in Maryland. Calvert County doesn't even look at house plans. Like being able to schedule with a person versus an automatic machine. What is the average wait time to get a question answered from a permit tech, a building inspector, zoning official, building official, or director? How does this differ from other localities? Their response is it's usually within a day at most. Most of the time it's done when I call or send an email. Stafford County, I stopped building there because it would take 6 months to get a permit, and I haven't built a house in Spotsylvania County in 3 years. I mostly deal with the permit techs, and the responses are very quick, usually the same day in King George. Other localities can be up to a week. 1 to 2 days in King George County, and others can be as much as 2 to 3 weeks. King George County normally answers the same day, other localities 2 to 3 days. One responded damn near immediately. His words, not mine. Other localities, nobody ever answers the phone. It's always leave a message and wait for someone to call you back if they ever do call you back. 24 hours, most localities are pretty accommodating. In your opinion, does King George require more, less, or about the same information as other localities when applying for a permit? They responded about the same in Orange County. It's been years since I built in Stafford or Spotsy. About the same amount of paperwork as Spotsy, City, and Stafford, much more paperwork than Orange, Caroline, and Culpeper. The same, maybe a little more. It requires more than Caroline, Richmond, and Westmoreland counties, but slightly less than Spotsy and Stafford. I certainly wouldn't recommend adding any additional requirements. Close to the same, a little less on grading plans. They require the same information. All areas differ. King George is definitely at the top of the food chain when it comes to house plans and packages. Simple site plans, but very detailed house plans. Calvert County doesn't require any house plans at all. St. Mary's is only a floor plan for each floor at the legal size paper. Charles County requires detailed house plans and site plans, and they are the hardest to get anything approved. And the others said the same. In what ways can community development make it easier to apply for a building permit? Please don't change. Everything is good as far as I'm concerned. No suggestions, don't require so much information. Other than less requirements, I think the building office is doing a fantastic job. Could put in online applications, but I prefer in person. It's better communication in person. I have no recommendations here. They do a fantastic job. Open an office in Prince Frederick, Maryland. It would be nice if there was a system to keep subcontractor licenses on file. 2020 was a difficult year. How did our changes in services differ from other localities during COVID-19? I don't know. I only built in King George in 2020. King George County was pretty seamless. Other than permits being dropped off and picked up outside, changes were not noticeable. Most other counties were semi-seamless. Stafford was very inaccessible and pushed for everyone to use their online e-plan systems, which has lots of quirks and issues. Customers had to pay by credit card, which most of my clients don't use. City of Fredericksburg, some employees are still not back to work in the office, and it's still closed to the public. About the same, King George did a good job. It was about the same. The inability to walk in and make minor corrections and have simple interactions impeded the efficiency, but all in all, I think the building office did a great job. Typically, we give a 2-hour window for our inspection time. How flexible are our inspectors, and how does this differ from other localities? Inspectors are great. You can call them in the field and get a time frame. Orange County is about the same. Inspectors do a great job of communicating. If they're going to be late, they'll usually let you know. It works very well. I'm happy with the way things work. Yes, if it is important, they will work with you on a morning or evening inspection. Other localities will only give you a window. Yes, other localities are also flexible on inspections. In some other localities, some do and some don't. If an inspector has discovered a code violation, how was it received? Was he helpful in trying to resolve the issue? And how is this different than other localities? King George inspectors will explain what needs to be fixed to pass an inspection, and will come back when it is fixed, sometimes even within hours later to give me time to correct items so I can stay on schedule. I really don't know another county that does that. I'm usually at all of my inspections, so they typically tell me what I need so I can get it resolved in a timely manner. Time is money. Very helpful. When we do have a violation, it's helpful to explain exactly what you require to correct it. We'll help you come up with a correction that satisfies the code. Most other localities will work with you if there are not too many items. Yes, they are helpful. Other localities are helpful as well. What is a typical wait time after a final inspection has been completed, and all the information received does it take to get a certificate of occupancy in other localities? Orange County that day. In most cases, the same day. Some counties take up to a week, usually 1 to 2 days, and some are immediate, like King George. Next day. I can get them emailed the same day as long as the requirements are met, a day or two. We provide them in the field or the same day, depending on whether or not they have all of their information. Overall department rating, 50% considered community development as distinguished, 38% exceeds expectations, and 12% said meets expectations. Some personal comments. Permit techs are awesome, great to ask questions and get answers, always friendly. Building inspectors are great every time I need an inspection. They show up on time, are willing to work around different times when needed. I couldn't be happier. King George is my favorite county to get a permit and build houses in. I really appreciate the in-person procedures, great communication, and friendly staff. King George County is by far my favorite county. They are helpful, quick, and thorough. It's a pleasure working with those in King George County. Rick, I just wanted to let you know that I think you're doing a good job, and I would prefer to work in King George County over any other county. Growth is coming your way, and I hope somehow you can hold on to the small county atmosphere. Growth will be hard, and it will bring in national builders, which will change how you have to do things. As you know, the local builders care about the county and want to uphold their standards. And keep county relationships positive. Keep up the good work. You have a good staff, and a very good customer relationships are important. So what did we learn? Our department is in line with the surrounding counties. Those counties requiring less than King George County often do not have their own stormwater, erosion, and sediment control or Chesapeake Bay Act. Fast track reviews are beneficial for both our department and our customers. Our office was open and working throughout COVID-19 shutdown, and the efforts to keep staff and the public safe and our quality of service did not diminish, even though we had to change how applications were received and processed. Our mission statement, which is to provide quality customer service while working to improve our level of services to a higher standard of professionalism, was not only met but exceeded. Community development also has a standard customer service survey. This is found with every email or permit that leaves our office. After revamping our customer service survey in 2020, we have received a total of 45 responses. Of those responses, most customers rated their opinion of our department as highly satisfied. 2 customers had a neutral opinion on being provided clear directions specific to their project, and 1 customer rated neutral as an area of receiving handouts that were informative and helpful in regards to their needs. Best experience working with any county or city local government I've ever had. Very easy and pleasant to work with. Matthew, a homeowner and business owner. Wonderful personnel, great assistance, took the worry out of the process, and I can't thank them enough. Joella, a customer receiving service. Our goals and objectives upcoming: to serve the citizens of King George County and any individual or business requesting service by administering the laws and ordinances adopted by the Commonwealth in King George County in a professional, consistent, and unbiased manner. We plan to provide training to the public and contractors regarding the 2018 Virginia Building Code updates. We plan to update our handouts for those same code updates, to overhaul our zoning and subdivision ordinances by holding open houses, joint work sessions, stakeholder meetings for input and successful implementation, overhaul our current applications and guidelines to meet new ordinances and make them more user-friendly, the implementation and development of municipal software, have all staff members certified in their specific duty by the state and/or other nationally recognized organizations, proceed with continuing education courses and programs in order to uphold those certifications, premiere and implement a new GIS website to the public, and maintain our customer service initiative program. As many of you know, Brad Hudson, our previous director of community development, dubbed us the Dream Team, and he was absolutely right. This past year, as their new director, it has been a pleasure working with this team. of highly skilled individuals, and I'm proud of each and every one of them. I cannot put into words my appreciation of them and their continued hard work that makes our office a family and that works together. I appreciate the opportunity to provide a small overview of what we do every day, as well as the support of the board, most specifically the overhaul of our ordinances and the implementation of Municity software. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Questions? Mr. Granger?
Ma'am, I had a couple. Thank you for the brief. I really do appreciate it. This is great. The GIS site. So I liked seeing the statistics about the cost savings. Do you have an estimate about how much time it will take up staff time? Like, do you know I guess the total overall cost balance based on staff time to do the maintenance of, that server as opposed to just using a service? Like the difference, was that the difference, or was that just, hey, we're not going to be using it anymore, so we're saving that, but we're now using staff time?
Yeah, that was another contractor that gave us that quote for the $15,000 in setup.
Okay. So is there a lot of time spent in maintaining that site or anything?
Yeah, we've been working on it for probably about maybe 6 months now.
Okay.
That's about as long as we knew that this company, MSAG, was going out of business in December.
But once it gets up, is there a lot of time that's going to be involved in maintaining, or is it pretty easy to go then?
It's pretty easy to maintain, and it's nice to be able to have it in house now.
Okay. Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you. Just want to bring up the by right development text amendments. I really appreciate you bringing those back. I know they didn't pass a couple years ago, and so I do appreciate you bringing those back because I think that was really important, and recognizing that and the will of the board in the changes and willingness to do that way.
But it really wasn't that long.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said it seems like years ago that we implemented it, but it's only been this past year.
Oh, that we did remove. I'm saying we tried a couple years ago.
Oh, yes, we did.
And it failed. And so that's what I was addressing that. And so I appreciate you bringing it back though to this board because of some change and people on the board. So I'm glad we got that removed because I think it was a good point that you brought up. 7 to 10 business days. How often do we hit that for the
with a complete application, we usually get it out before then.
I'm sorry.
To be honest.
Are we ever past 7 to 10 days?
With an incomplete application, we have at least provided that initial review within that 7 to 10 business days so that applicant knows what they're missing from their application if it is incomplete.
Tracking. I like when people ask for less requirements. I get that. No one likes to have regulation. At the end of the day, though, your job is enforcement, and so I can appreciate there's always going to be a little tension there. It is what it is. The 45 responses from the customer survey, those are the voluntary ones from people. You just send them out to everyone. Is that my understanding?
They go out in every permit package. All of our emails have a link to our website that goes directly to that survey, and those surveys are typically turned in directly to HR.
Okay, and so 45 are all that we've had turned in voluntarily
in the past year.
In the past year. That's awesome. I think that says a lot because normally when people respond to surveys, it's to complain.
Yes, sir.
And so to have people responding and only providing positive feedback, to saying at the worst meets expectations, I think is pretty amazing. I'd really like to say thank you to all of your staff, all the work you do. I appreciate you guys coming out. I know it's kind of a long meeting, but thank you for coming out and supporting Ms. Hall in this. And I really appreciate the work you do for our county. I think there's been a narrative that's been pushed around that our county is not very responsive and not helpful to developers. And I think it's an untrue narrative. And I think we have bad actors in this county who try to push that narrative. And I'm kind of sick of hearing it. I really appreciate what you do. I think you guys do a great job. I think the people in this county think you do a great job. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Granger.
That's all I got.
Mr. Stonehill?
Great presentation. I mean, just fantastic. So a lot of detail in it, all that kind of stuff. I'm kind of disappointed about GIS. I have to learn it all over again.
You and me both.
It's something I've used ever since it's come out all the time. So
I will say that I think you will be pleased. It's a little more user friendly. It takes a minute to get used to the changes, but I do think that staff has done a great job, and you'll be pleased with it.
I just got it just like this year. Got to start all over again. And I'm looking forward to the town halls and updating some of our old ordinances and things like that, which you know, is always a good thing to keep things up and going, especially we're in our growth spurt here. And I just wanted to say thank you and thanks to everybody there on staff for doing that and getting everything through our pandemic and everything. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Bender?
I want to echo, thank you. Your staff is always responsive when I come down and ask questions. But one of the things is, and I have to think kudos for continuing that implementation of the development committee meeting, because we had both talked about that a long time, and I think it helps not have as many problems, and everybody understands right up front what's needed, what are the concerns. And we have a very challenging sometimes development environment because we are under the Chesapeake Bay Act, which a lot of people don't realize. And one of the things you said to me once is we always look like the bad guy because we have to enforce the regulations. And that is true. And I try to tell the public, give them a minute. Sometimes what they're telling you is because they're mandated to do that. And so be kind sometimes, but I really appreciate this survey, and I thank all of you for the hard work you do.
Thank you, Ms. Bender.
Mr. Bush?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Heather. Very thorough presentation. But I'm sure there were some bad comments in there that I've heard from some people, but I've always had a rebuttal. In all my dealings with community development, and things that I've heard from people, you are professional, very knowledgeable. The problem isn't with community development. The problem is with previous boards and this board, with some of the ordinances and the overregulation that we have. Also the overregulation from the state that your office has to enforce. So you are doing your job and doing a great job. Thank you. I am looking forward to the process of reviewing the ordinances and getting a lot of this stuff off the books to, one, take some of the enforcement of that off of y'all plate and to make us more friendly to a growing community. So thank you very much. Very thorough report. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Bush.
So, Ms. Hall, thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate the fact that you all are now including the link to the survey on your emails. I think that's a good addition. I want to thank your staff for coming out tonight, and I'm not sure if they were really here for this or if they were here for the next the next action item that you're going to stick around for, but either way, we are grateful for all of you and all that you do. And if I could just make one comment with regard to the GIS, you said that staff currently has been testing it, perusing it. I would love to see it because I am on county GIS every single day. So I would love to check out what, yeah, if you could, I would love to check it out. I have a lot of fun on that GIS website. So thank you for that. All right. Thanks everyone for all you do.
Thank you.
And with that, we will move on to the next item. Action item 0904, Department of Community Development, appointment of certified building official. Ms. Hall.
In October 6, 2020, the Board of Supervisors appointed Rick Herron as acting building official upon the retirement of our previous building official. During this past year, Rick Herron has received training and testing required to become the certified building official. On August 16, 2021, Mr. Herring passed the final portion of his certification. Rick currently oversees the daily operations of the building department. He began employment with community development in 2004 as a building inspector. He has since then been promoted several times to his latest position as deputy building official, acting building official. With his 17 years experience within our department, his appointment will ensure a smooth transition into his permanent role as certified building official. Per 105.1 Appointment of Building Official, Virginia Construction Code, every local building department shall have a building official as executive official in charge of the department. Section 105.1 of the Virginia Construction Code, the position of building official shall be appointed in a manner selected by the local governing body. Upon official appointment of Rick Herron as King George County's building official, the Department of Housing and Community Development will be notified. And as the Director of Community Development, I recommend Rick Herring, acting building official, be appointed as the permanent certified building official for King George County.
Do I have a motion?
I move to appoint Rick Herron as the permanent certified building official for King George County.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Herron.
I just want to thank each one of the board members here for supporting me, that we can make King George a safer place. 17 years ago, I could never imagine that I'd be standing in front of you today. Got to thank Brad Hudson.
And I was just about to note Mr. Hudson here as well, and I think that says an awful lot about you and your department that he came back for tonight.
I was building a house in Claydale 17 years ago, and he pulled up in the driveway and said, "Hey, how would you like to be a building inspector?" Okay, bring me an application. Next day, he brought me an application. Pulled up in the driveway again over at Claydale. I dropped everything I had. I took it, filled it out, dissolved my business that I had, and now I stand here before you. And thirdly, I want to thank each one of the employees at Community Development. They've supported me 100%. Thank you.
Congratulations. All right then, 0905, Department of Finance, Intergovernmental Support Agreement, IGSA, between Naval Support Activity South Potomac and King George County. Ms. Hahn, welcome.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. King George County and the Naval Support Activity South Potomac, also known as NSASP, often will enter into an IGSA, which is an intergovernmental support agreement for mutual benefit. The IGSA that has been included in your board packet. The specific service on this particular IGSA would be to add NSASP to our upcoming solicitation for dumpster and trash services. Currently, the NSASP contracts with a company out of Maryland. The company collects their trash and takes it back to Maryland with them and deposits into a landfill there. So by entering into the IGSA, they will benefit. The process for solicitations with the federal government take a long time. And so this would be beneficial to them to be able to ride on the contract for King George County. It will also benefit King George County because in the solicitation, we are listing that any trash that is picked up on base has to be taken to the county landfill and will bring in additional revenue for those, for the trash that will be deposited there. The Deputy County Attorney has reviewed the IGSA, and we went back and forth a little bit with the base and came up with a mutually agreement on that, and that document is in the board packet. So at this time, I'd recommend that the board authorize the county administrator to execute the included IGSA to add the NSASP to the upcoming solicitation for dumpster and trash removal services.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Questions from board members? No? All right. Mr. Golsky, we had one minor correction to what is provided in the packet.
That's correct. Ms. Hahn's official version has the 2021 on it, and it just did not get substituted into the package.
So it'll be with the 2021 correction. Very good.
Yes, that's what it will be executed with a 2021 correction.
Thank you. All right, then, do I have a motion?
I move to adopt the IGSA as presented with the modification for the 2021 year.
Second.
Any further discussion? I just want to note, Mr. Stanley, thanks for coming out tonight. 3 years ago, I think in 2018, I met with you and Dr. Young at the time upstairs to start laying the groundwork for this. So thank you for being willing to work with us on this and provide what I think is a mutually beneficial opportunity. So thanks for that. All right, then, we have a motion properly seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Next item, Department of Finance 0906, True Up Rappahannock Juvenile Center invoice.
During budget generation, the Rappahannock Juvenile Center presents King George County with our share of their operations costs of the center. This amount is an estimated amount based on previous years. The total operating budget for the center for fiscal year 2020-2021 was $3,788,902. That's their total operating budget. King George County's portion was 6.06% or $229,835. However, during fiscal year 2020-2021, King George County had a total of 40 children that were in the facility for a total of 655 days there at the center. After those calculations, and they take the number of days per each county to come up with a percentage. After the calculations were completed based on the totals for all localities, King George County's percentage increased to 13.4, or a total of $507,712.87, resulting in a shortfall of $277,877.87, of which we have received an invoice for a true-up amount. I would like to amend this, that we do have in fiscal year 2020-2021, on one of our invoices, we did receive a $126,550 credit from the previous fiscal year 2019-2020. So therefore, we still have, we have $126,550 remaining. The credit was $126,525.86 from that fiscal year. So my and I presented with you just so you could see the different proportions from the different counties and what the estimated was versus what the actual was. And so the recommended action is we need an additional $151,372.97, which I am asking that you authorize the county administrator to transfer that amount from the general fund balance to cover the Rappahannock Juvenile Center budget for fiscal included in the current year, fiscal year 2021-2022, because that's when we received the invoice and it's past the cutoff for going back to the last fiscal year.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. So again, that number is $151,372.97. Did I get that right? So
Could you
for
say that one
any
more
of
time?
my 151,372.97 for any of my colleagues that wish to move.
That would be what needs to be moved from the general fund in order to cover the remainder of the expenditure. Yes, ma'am.
So
Balance.
before,
Yes, thank you.
any other questions for Ms. Hahn before we?
That was the question I had. I was trying to figure out what the number was.
Do I have a motion?
I move to authorize the county administrator to transfer $151,372.97 from the general fund balance to the Rappahannock Juvenile Center budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? So I will just put this out there for my colleagues because I did reach out to Ms. Hahn today because I was curious if this was the first time we had ever had to true up like this significantly, and it looks like this is the first time since 2016 is what Ms. Hahn indicated to me, and that all of the prior years we had always had a credit. So suddenly we had lots of kids that required this service in the past year. Food for thought.
And also, I would like to say too that I think that COVID may have had an impact on it because some of the children that are housed at the facility could benefit from foster care, but a lot of people with COVID don't want to enter into being a foster parent. And then they have no place for the children.
Gotcha.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion properly seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Hahn. And one more for Ms. Hahn, 0907, Department of Finance, conversion of part-time custodial position to full-time.
Okay, at the last meeting, the county administrator mentioned to you that we were going to convert a part-time custodial position to a full-time. Background on that, the salary and benefits for a full-time custodian would be $48,826. This came from a need from social services as well as engineering and information technology. Those departments had each budgeted in their current year budget funds for a service to do their cleaning. The county administrator proposes to convert a part-time position to full-time to cover these offices. DSS has $11,700 in their budget for a service. This would be, the finance department would invoice them on a monthly basis to cover their portion up to the $11,700. Both engineering and information technology have $5,200 in their budget for cleaning services. These amounts would be transferred to the general properties budget. General Properties has sufficient funds in the part-time employee budget to cover the remaining $26,726. So I'm recommending that you authorize the county administrator to convert a vacant part-time general properties position to a full-time position as presented.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the county administrator to convert a vacant part-time general property position to a full-time position as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Hahn.
Thank you.
All right, 0908, Department of Economic Development and Tourism, Tourism Funding Application, Arsenal Events, King George Outdoor Adventure Day, Remembering 9/11. Mr. Minor.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. We are requesting $1,100 from the Tourism Fund for the following project: Friends of Caledon, King George Outdoor Adventure Day, Remembering 9/11. It is a one-day event that offers a variety of outdoor recreational and educational opportunities on a day and a place in our county to reflect and show respect for those who sacrificed so much 20 years ago on 9/11. The event will have 27 miles of trails for walking and biking, environmental and wildlife educational stations, including a live demo for birds of prey, history sites, plus activity vendors for outdoor games such as a bike rodeo. Food vendors and food trucks will be available to the public. Flyers will include information to show the different activities, vendors, and a map of the new Potomac Heritage Trail that connects Caledon State Park to the Dahlgren Railroad Heritage Trail. Goal of this project is to increase tourism by having people travel a short distance to the county for a day of fun and encourage repeat visits. This event will include a remembrance ceremony between 9 and 10 a.m. Officers from Dahlgren will have a color guard, speakers, and a flag retirement along with a moment of silence at 911. Then the Outdoor Adventure Day begins at 10 a.m. The funds requested: flyers, $175, birds of prey, live demo, $400, funding for water, bathrooms, and PPE. TAC recommendation. So after review, the TAC recommends that the BOS approve the $1,100 for funding for the King George Outdoor Adventure Day, Remembering 9/11. Staff agrees with TAC's recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Minor. Questions from members? Mr. Bush, this is your district. I'll start with you first, sir.
It's not really a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I love the idea of an outdoor adventure day, but personally, I don't think 9/11 is the day to promote an outdoor adventure day. I understand there's going to be a remembrance ceremony, but just putting the title Remembering 9/11 doesn't make it what I believe it to be. Personally, I'm opposed to this event on that day. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Ms. Bender.
I just have a question about, 9/11 is almost here and the application is now. Have they already done flyers and brochures?
Well, ma'am, I'm not entirely sure. Ms. Schlimm, would you be able to answer that question for us?
The application that was done quite some time ago, I was under the assumption that this is just a formality to bring it in. So unfortunately, yes, it became very late. The original cost was $6,200. We slashed it because I knew this meeting came right before the event. So yes, we have had some flyers, but mostly all our marketing is Facebook and Instagram.
Have you had a lot of response?
A tremendous amount of response, yes.
All right, thank you.
So with regard to that, Mrs. Schlemm, I will own that decision. Your application was submitted to administration on August 9th, and a request was made to bring it directly to the Board of Supervisors at the following Board of Supervisor meeting, and I, as chairman, denied that request because I personally cannot see fit to circumvent the Tourism Advisory Committee because they are the mechanism by which we comply with Virginia Code with regard to consulting the lodging and tourism providers. So that's why, even though you did, I see in the notes here, submit it upstairs on August 9th, we had to go through the process and allow the Tourism Advisory Committee to be consulted. I cannot, in good conscience, fast track something directly to the Board of Supervisors and skip them. They are there for a reason, and if we get in the habit of doing that, then they're going to feel like they're not valued, and then it's going to be harder than it already is to find citizens willing to volunteer for any board, but especially that one. So I will own that. So Ms. Bender, did you have any other questions? All right, Mr. Stonehill?
So they got food vendors and all this already set up since we're 4 days away?
Yes, sir. I believe we're cutting it close, but I believe Ms. Schlimm does have all those things arranged. That's not necessarily a part of the application, but
Mrs. Schlemm, why don't you just stay up at the podium in case we have other questions, and we'll get them all done, and then you can sit back down. Thank you.
The only change was the food vendor that we had confirmed 6 weeks ago canceled. So we do not have a food truck. But besides everything else, everything is a go.
And this is being advertised where? Just Facebook and word of mouth, you said?
And we did make some flyers up. They went into Bike Works, is the shop that's coming on Saturday. So he had a pile of flyers, and yeah, just with a limited budget, we just needed to count on Facebook and Instagram, which that's what I only did for my fundraiser, which raised over $6,000. And it's amazing what you could do Facebook and Instagram.
So you raised $6,000 for this already?
No, it was for a fundraiser that I held at Back Porch.
Something, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, right. Mr. Minor, do we have a balance on our TAC?
I apologize, sir. I do not have that in front of me. However, I believe the last time that I provided that, we were, I believe, around $500,000 in the general TAC fund.
That's all my questions.
Mr. Granger.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Schlemm, 175 for flyers and brochures. I know we're beating the advertisement thing. You spent $175. I'm sorry. You spent $175 on printed advertisement already. Okay, so you're looking to recoup the costs of what's already printed. Okay, because I imagine you're not going to try to print any more now. Fair enough.
Okay, that was all I had. I just want to make sure I understood that right.
All right, and Ms. Bender, you had another question now that all other members have had a chance to ask. Go ahead.
Right. Do you think that, I know there's quite a few other events on 9/11 naturally, especially the Spirits Festival at Belle Grove. Do you think you're still going to get a high turnout with all the different events that are happening that day, or would another day be better?
I made this choice because I did call around to see if there were any other 9/11 ceremonies that the county was putting on, and the answer was no. So it was going to be just King George Outdoor Adventure Day, and knowing that at that time I did not hear of any other ceremony. I am a military brat. 9/11 means an awful lot to me, so I wanted to include it, and I got a very good, tons of support, and that's why we added it on. And it's my first time doing this event. I have no idea how many people are going to show up. Could be 100, it could be 400, it could be 600. I just don't know.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
I move to approve $1,100 funding for the King George Outdoor Adventure Day, remembering 9/11.
Can you specify the source of funding, Mr. Granger?
Oh, I'm sorry, from the tourism fund.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Go with aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion carries 4-1. Thank you, Mrs. Schlemm, for your patience. Thank you, Mr. Minor.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, County Administrator's Report. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief. I know we have some other business, but first thing I would add is the COVID update. I've already given you that, so I'm going to replace that. The report on Caledon visit with Governor Northam and Senator Stewart. If you may recall, we had the opportunity to be present at the, I guess it's called the handing off ceremony, where they handed off the some of the headstones that were part of the historic cemetery in the DC area that were used to shore up some of the shoreline over the years. And it was a very moving ceremony, and I know that Senator Stewart was very moved and was glad to be a part of that presentation to get the headstones back to where they belong. But and it's just a fascinating piece of history, unfortunate piece of history, obviously, when things like this happen. But and some of you all know a heck of a lot more about that area, and specifically Senator Stewart's property than I would. But it was just I think he enjoyed the opportunity to make that presentation and to have Governor Northam there and Governor Hogan from Maryland, and also the mayor of the District of Columbia was there as well. The other item that I have, a couple other items. One is Economic Development Strategic Plan Review. I have spoken with several of you all, and you remember that you have this plan that was done and completed in 2019. I have created a team of department heads we're gonna go through that plan, and our plan is to come back to you all in some format. My recommendation would be do it in a work session format or some kind of opportunity where you can have some free-flowing discussions about that plan. There's some really great starting points. There's some really great goals that we have. But I do think that honestly, there's some things that need to be fleshed out a little bit more and get a little better direction from you guys as the Board of Supervisors. So we're gonna be working on that. We'll be bringing them back to you in a future meeting, but it's time to, definitely make sure that that plan does not sit on a shelf and never get implemented. It's a good starting point and a good opportunity for this county to move forward in a number of areas. The other item that I have is I was contacted by excuse me, Waste Management regarding a $3 per ton solid waste tipping fee that is being proposed statewide by a group that is looking to fund parks and recreation, or mainly parks, throughout the state, and it would be on the back of this tipping fee. I believe you guys were contacted perhaps last year, and you expressed no interest in that. I have talked to the representative from Waste Management and indicated that that's probably likely as well, since we own a landfill and we would be kind of taxing ourselves. There is a little flyer, if you have not seen, that's in the agenda that talks about, what this is all about. And I think the goal of the waste management folks and some of the folks that are pushing the eradication of this effort is to get it before it gets into the General Assembly, and get it so that it doesn't have any legs and it goes away. But obviously there's probably some big money behind both groups, but I will go ahead if it's okay. I can put a letter together, or the chair can we can have a letter put together for her and sign it and express the county's support for the efforts to prevent this from happening. I don't know if you need a motion or if you would like one.
So let me ask for the will of the board, and I will start with Mr. Granger because the landfill is in your district, sir.
100% agree. This is a terrible decision to add this tipping fee. I'm absolutely against it, and I would totally support sending out a letter saying we support those fighting this.
Thank you, Mr. Granger. Mr. Stonehill?
No thanks on the tipping fee.
Ms. Bender?
No thanks. I brought this to the board last year when I was chair, so definitely no thanks.
Mr. Bush?
Yep, same page.
Yep, I believe it is unanimous. As much as I love parks, and part of the charge here was for Virginia State Parks to try to find a dedicated stream of funding in the future, it can't come at our expense. This is going to have a significant impact on our capital budget. So it's a no for me too.
Okay, great. I'll put a letter together. The last item that I would bring up is just a reminder. So we did receive one bidder proposal for the monument removal. We are not ready to bring this back to you all, but I just wanted to keep it in front of you that it could be at the next meeting. The process of verifying the bid as being a reasonable and legitimate is responsible bidder, I think is the word. But that is in the process right now. But I do think that you do need to talk about how you would like to have that discussion. So at some point, it's entirely up to you guys how you want to deal with that.
We have anyone who wants to offer anything with regard to that? Or do we just want Mr. Miller, once procurement determines if that we have a qualified, responsible respondent, bring it forward?
And we do have, we had an internal group of employees. Travis Quisenberry is one of those, Mike Muncie, our general property. And I think there was one other one that they have looked through things, and so they're in the process now of just verifying things, getting references and just checking. So it most likely will be ready at the next meeting if that's what you want to do. If not, I mean, like I said, it's no burning issue for staff. I mean, we're ready to go when you're ready to go.
Okay. Will of the board?
I'd say bring it when it's available and ready to be brought to the board.
I have one added question on
Go
it.
ahead, Ms. Bender.
Sorry, I interrupted there. Apologize. Is there need for a public hearing because it will be removal of public property?
I believe Mr. Britton researched that and looked at that. I don't believe that is the case. He is stepping into the room now. Ms. Bender was asking about the statue, I mean, the removal of the obelisk. If that were to go forward, does there need to be a public hearing? Because of it could be, because it's not the county's property.
So,
Or it's just being relocated.
relocating the memorial itself does not require a public hearing.
Because we don't own it correctly.
Well, no, because you're not, the public hearings are required for the disposition
Disposing.
of land, real property. And a statue, a memorial, an obelisk is what's called personal property. So there's real property, that is the ground and those things, and then land, you know, what God made. And then there's personal property, which is what you can own and move around with you, and what people made.
Does that satisfy your
You don't
question,
need a
Ms.
public
Bender?
hearing. You would need a public hearing, and the discussion that we had was you would need a public hearing in the event that someone claimed that they owned the whatever it is, 10 square feet or 100 square feet that it's on, and that is why we did a title search as to whether or not when they moved it from Old Route 3 over there by the op shop, and it was moved here, whether or not some other person or entity retained title to that, which to the best of our knowledge, they did not. But even if that were the case, then they would have to own that land and have a deed restriction on that could only be used for this in perpetuity, which we know that we don't have. And by the way, all this time has gone by and no one has laid claim to it. So in my opinion is, and I've given it to you before, is that you do not need a public hearing. You've had a lot essentially, but you could have a public hearing, but it's not required by the law under that code section 1800 in order to have a public hearing for the disposition of real property, because you're not disposing of real property, you're disposing of what's on it.
Gotcha. That's where I wanted the clarification, because some think that it's disposal of county property. So that's why I'm asking.
The disposal of county property by sale, and that Mr. Golsky is much more of an expert in that than me, but disposal of county property by sale is a public procurement, and you can go through auction or what have you. You still don't need a public hearing. If it comes to a certain amount, then you have to have it authorized to sell it. Like if you had 40 old cruisers in the fleet and you wanted to get rid of it, they were county, let's say they were county cruisers, not constitutional, but you know what I mean? If there were 40 county vehicles and you wanted to dispose of them, that might require board action to auction them off. But that's the procurement process. That's completely different, because we are not selling this, you're moving it. Presumably it'll still be county property in a different location.
And I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask it, but if it was moved, then who retains ownership of it? Then it would be where it's moved to, or the county, or?
No, you do, unless you give it away.
Okay.
Not you personally.
I got
The
you.
royal you.
The county as a
Yes.
whole.
And that is why I said, and that's why it's important that no one has laid claim to it. And again, Mr. Golsky can tell you about how long you have to lay claim and whether you have to put things in the newspaper and things like that. But all the information that we have is that it is county property. It has been maintained by the county, and it has continued to be county property. No one else has ever laid claim to it. The county, in fact, Ms. Binder, I think you gave me the dates, cleaned it up.
Yes, twice.
Yeah, at its expense. No one else stepped forward. I myself, when I was Commonwealth attorney, stood out there and talked about it as county property lots of times with elementary school groups and everything. No one has ever said anything different to my knowledge or in our research. So unless you gave it away, it would be county property over in wherever you put it.
All right, thank you.
All right then, so, oh, go ahead, Mr. Bush.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when this does come before the board, I would like it to also have a plan with it so that we know clearly not only who's moving it and how it's being moved, where it's being located to. Is it just that one memorial? Is it all? I would like to have the plan and all the details laid out publicly so that we know exactly what we're looking at.
Got that, Mr. Miller? All right, so yes, bring it forward. When you have everything squared away, yes, please do bring it forward. Yes, Mr. Britton.
And Madam Chair, and I can work with Mr. Miller about this, but that does bring up a good point, and we did look into that because however you get the land, if it's in a cemetery, for instance, there are different ways. So those can be deeded, they can be held in trust, they can be held. There's actually a cemetery act, a whole law. But so if it's county property, presumably that piece of land itself would be county land just elsewhere. And so if that isn't what the county wanted to do, it can be handled in other fashions. You can park your car in someone else's parking lot.
Thank you. Ms. Bender, do you have another question?
I wanted to let Mr. Stonehill go first for my question since I kind of jumped in front of him.
Mr. Stonehill.
No question, just you guys get the rest of that information when you've done homework and just present it so we can see it done.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bender?
My question is where would the money from removal come from? That's a request I ask in the proposal.
So that's not a question we're going to answer tonight, though.
No,
So,
I said in the
yeah.
proposal.
Yep. Very good. All right. Is that everything, Mr. Miller? Thank you, sir, for your report. Any other questions for Mr. Miller about anything in his report? No? All right, then with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors convene in closed meeting pursuant to VA Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, and/or salaries of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public bodies, specifically the Office of County Attorney, and section 2.23711A5 and 3.9 for discussions concerning a prospective business or industry or expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business's industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community, and discussions and/or consideration of information subject to the exclusion of subdivision 3, Virginia State Code 2.23705.6 related to economic development. I invite the county administrator, county attorney, deputy county attorney, and Travis Quisenberry because they are deemed necessary and/or their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the topics to be discussed pursuant to Code Section 2.23712F.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We are in closed session. Do we have a motion?
I move that the King George County Board of Supervisors return to public meeting and certified by vote that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered during the closed meeting.
Second.
All members, please so certify. Mr. Ranger.
So certify.
So certified.
So certify.
Certify.
So certify. We are in open session. Do I have another motion?
Move to adjourn until September 21st at 6:30 PM in the boardroom.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Madam
We are-
Chair,
Yes.
don't we have a joint meeting or something prior?
Oh, yes, we do. September 15th at 6:30 PM here.
It was either 6:30 or 6. I think yeah. But that again is the presentation by the Berkeley Group, and you're convening with the Planning Commission just to kick this off. And I will say this, that if I can, I don't know if I can, maybe I need to wait for you guys to.
Say it.
Okay. Yeah. Say it for a little bit longer. Supervisor Stonehill had asked me the process, and it's my understanding from Ms. Hall that there will be kind of like a traveling roadshow of like town hall type opportunities where other folks can participate in the discussion. It's not just going to sit in this room. There'll be some meetings, remote locations. So that's all.
All right. I move to amend my previous motion to adjourn until Wednesday, September 15th at 6:30 PM in the boardroom.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.